I know Tibbs. He's in there by himself. He locked his door, and he's smiling. He's laughing. Tibbs, I know you, man. I know you. He was like, yeah.
You think he's happy with what happened today?
Yeah. Tibbs like me. He likes confrontation.
So good. Welcome back to The Jump. Having little updates on the Jimmy Butler story. The Athletic first reporting Jimmy held a players-only meeting today. Jimmy confirmed that to me just a few minutes ago, and he was emphasizing the meeting was really to make clear to his teammates his issue is with management, not with them. And management, in this case, means also his coach, because I'm not only a client, I'm an owner. It is Coach Tom Thibodeau, and we're showing pictures of you right now because you also know the pressure that comes with the dual roles of head coach and team president. You mentioned it a little bit before the break. What are sort of, every situation has advantages and disadvantages. Anyone colors something as like, that's great, that's awful, that they've never held a job before. So tell us sort of how it impacted your role with the Pistons.
Well, there are things that are tough with it, right? But in this case with Tom, like I was saying to you, I think it's a real advantage. He's got his finger on the pulse of that team. He knows. He's not just close to it. He's right there inside of it. He's going to know as times go along if this just isn't going to work, the chemistry's not good, or if this is something that can get fixed. I think that's the biggest advantage of the job. The biggest problem is you lose objectivity and you get focused on the present much more than the future, because when you're a coach, let's face it, you want to win the next game.
Sure.
That's what you want to do, the next game. So you need a Scott Layden, or I had Jeff Bauer, and when Pop was doing it, he had R.C. Buford to give you a little longer view and help you keep perspective.
I mean, the biggest thing that sort of impacted that when you were at the Pistons is the Blake Griffin trade, right? That's the biggest trade, and sort of, how did that impact your coach hat versus your president hat?
Well, that was an easy one for both reasons, and everybody in our organization, from the owner on down, was all in on making that move for Blake. We thought it would help in the near term. In reality, we thought it would help more in this year, this year we're in right now, and next year than we did last year, because when you make those deals, you never know how it's going to go in the short term. You know, people have got to get on the same page quickly. So it was really made for the next couple of years.
Coach, I want to ask you, because part of this story isn't just whether Tibbs wants to do it or not, is that it's a directive from ownership. And so when you have ownership breathing down your neck, for lack of a bit, how do you manage that? Because it's hard enough for presidents and general managers to do that on a day-to-day basis. But when you also have the burden of also coaching the team, how do you manage that added kind of duty?
Well, you've got to have great communication with your owner. At the end of the day, it's the owner's team. He's the guy that's paying everybody. It's his vision, and you've got to try to execute the best that you can. Now, all owners handle it differently. Some of them just hire people, and we want you to go do the job, and if you don't do it well enough, we'll change. But there's other people who, you know, whether it's Jerry Jones in football, guys like that, who want to be involved on a daily basis. So it's all different. I don't know Glen Taylor. I don't know how much he's involved on a day-to-day basis, but certainly if he tells Tom that it has to be different than what Tom wants, Tom doesn't have a choice in that regard. He's got to go with the owner.
I mean, my favorite line in all of this from someone who held both of those jobs is Bill Parcells, who always says, you want me to cook the meal, you better let me buy the groceries. And I think that in this particular Jimmy Butler situation, we're seeing that more than anything, because this is what Tibbs wanted, right? When he was in Chicago, clearly management made some decisions he didn't like with personnel, and then he was expected to go out on the floor and win with them, and those clashes were well documented. In this case, if he hadn't held both roles, it is possible that a president might have gotten those requests from Jimmy Butler that Jimmy is saying came 4 days after the season, and made a personnel move that Tibbs, the coach, who clearly wants Butler on his team, on that bench during the year, wouldn't have liked, and would have felt like the rug would have been pulled out from under him because he worked so hard to get Jimmy there. So this, to me, is sort of the exact situation Tibbs wanted when he said he needed both of those roles.
Well, true. And he's clearly puts a high value on Jimmy Butler. Jimmy Butler was second in the league last year in minutes played per game, only behind LeBron. He wants him on the floor. That doesn't mean to me that Tibbs will not deal him, but he holds him in high regard, which means he wants a lot in return. He doesn't have a deal right now that he feels would work. He knows there's some chemistry issues. If he had a deal where he thought he was getting comparable value for their team, either now or in the future, he'd make the deal. This idea that Tom Thibodeau refuses to make a move on Jimmy Butler, I'm not buying that. People are listening to the owner, Amin,
right,
who's pressing for a deal and thinking they can get in and get a one-sided deal against the Timberwolves, and Tom Thibodeau and Scott Layden are holding out against that.
Counterpoint. If Tibbs had been more proactive earlier in the summer on that front, maybe the deals wouldn't be as one-sided. The idea that, and again, that's the gift and the curse. The gift is, hey, give me some time, I can fix this. And maybe he can, or maybe he could have. But in a regular situation, that's why I always preach separation of church and state. Look, I get it. It stinks that we have to give up Jimmy, and it stinks that we operate in a league where fair value for trading a star, those days are long gone. But the earlier you get behind it, the better your chances, because once it gets out and once all of this happens, your leverage drops and you get the type of deals that you're talking about where Tibbs like, I can't work with this, not in the short term and not even in the long term, but that's a function of we took so long to get to this point where we're finally serious about entertaining that conversation.